Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. Each and everyone, you are most welcome in Refugees' Right and Empowerment Discussion Series. Race Discussion Series, the second one, which is Gender Equality and Women Rights. Race Discussion Series, or previously known as Refugees Lead Webinar Series, is a series of discussion with the purpose of giving empowerment regarding the law and human rights related information directly for refugees in Indonesia. Before, SWAC also conducted previously between 2020 and 2021 with topics related to the law, human rights, and current issues in dynamic of refugees communities in Indonesia. Our previous topics such as marriage law in Indonesia, how to conduct safe demonstration, and vaccination for refugees has attracted many interests from the refugees community. So without further ado, I would like to go ahead with the representative of Suwaka to give the opening speech in the topic of gender equality and women rights. Please, Brother Anga, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Brother Narsyad, for such a good introductory speech. I will address my opening speech as representative of Swaka. Hi, everyone. I hope everyone watching our discussion series in the YouTube channel is in a good condition. As we commemorating Kartini's Day and her efforts in gender equality in the past, and also their efforts in women's rights, the issues of gender equality itself and the fulfillment of women's rights is still rising in the communities here, including refugee communities. We identified some such indications and past experiences where the fulfillment of women's rights is still not adequate, and there are many efforts that the refugee communities and local communities is still conduct to fulfill such better situations, including for refugee communities. And therefore, with that background, we think it's important for SWAPA to address such discussions today with the topic of gender equality and also the fulfillment of women's rights, as we embracing a better situations for refugees, but also not for refugees, but for all local communities here in Indonesia. We already have two great speakers here, Kak Vivi from Jakarta Feminist, or Perkumpulan Lintas Feminis Jakarta, and also Sister Nemo from Sisterhood community. Both are great speakers and well-established speakers to address the topics of today's discussions. And yeah, I think let's have a great discussions today. Thank you. That's it from me. Back to you, Brother Nasyad.
Thank you so much, Brother Anga. Yes, I do agree with you. It's very necessary to talk and share information about women's rights and gender equality today, and we are so willing to hear from the two speakers that we have in our webinar. I would like to go ahead with introducing the first speaker. Her name is Anindya Rastaviani, Fifi. She's a project director of Perkumpulan Lintas Feminis Jakarta. Please, Fifi, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Brother Nashat. I think that's how everyone calling each other. So I'm so happy to be able to, spend sometimes with all of you, especially, when we are commemorating one of the most, I feel like the most important day of, Indonesian women, which is Kartini Days. But I'm also very happy to know that I think Indonesian, especially when we are commemorating this day, which is Kartini Day, like it's already shifted into such a empowering activities instead of just because I think when I was growing up, most of the activities that we did when we are celebrating Kartini is just simply like putting on makeup and like dressing up and stuff like that, and I think it's very very much away from what she was actually fighting for when she was still alive. So I think I'm so happy that we are definitely have more activities or discussions surrounding what is actually the issues of gender equality or inequality, not only in Indonesia but also definitely all around the world as well. So I would like to first introduce myself one more time. My name is Anindya Rastuviani. People call me Vivi. I am the program director for Perkumpulan Lintas Feminis Jakarta, or we also call it Jakarta Feminist in short. So I would like to, share my screen because I already prepared like some kind of presentation, but I would like to open today's, discussions in a sense by asking a question that I probably will answer anyway, but I feel like it's good if we're going to talk about gender equality. I think we heard a lot of misconception when we are talking about gender equality. And I think my first question would be, what is the most common misconception when we are talking about gender equality? Let me share the screen first. So yeah, I think for me, based on my experience as a feminist, and we were going to talk about feminism as well in my presentation, I think the most common misconceptions, there are so many misconceptions. I think the first thing that popped up into my mind when we are talking about gender equality, a lot of people think that we who fight for gender equality, mostly we are fighting for women's right, right? So I think a lot of people assume that we hate men, which is, I think that is the most common misconceptions. Or a lot of people actually told me that, like, what kind of other thing that you were asking? Like, I feel like you are already equal, like especially in Indonesia. And they brought up, Kartini as the icon of, equality, gender equality in Indonesia, that they say like, you can go to school now, you can find a job now. But I feel like, it's not as simple as that. And we're definitely going to talk more and like what is actually gender equality looks like, inequality looks like in Indonesia and maybe in other part of the world as well. And I think a lot of people also think that gender equality, it's a Western idea. I think this is something that I feel like a lot of people say that this is definitely not Indonesian culture. This is not Eastern value or whatever they call it. And I just felt like, I feel like, as an Indonesian, raised by Indonesian, and I think we also work with a lot of other feminist activists in the global South, we felt that actually Western colonialism is the one who bring gender inequality to our country. So we're going to talk more about that as well. But I think before we dig deeper into so many problems that we have right now, especially because I only have 25 minutes, so I think we can definitely talk more on the talk show, but I just want to show you, a lot of people also think that equality and equity is something that is completely different. A lot of people say like, why are you talking about equality when we are actually supposed to do equity? So a lot of people, most of the time, you probably seen this picture before, right? Like this kind of, portraying what is the difference between reality, equality, equity, and also justice. And I felt like, I'm not sure whether I'm agree with this, like depictions of what is equality and also equity, because I felt like we're going to talk as well with when it comes to definition, especially with gender equality or also gender equity. I feel like this is not I'm gonna say like 100% portrayal of what it actually looks like, but I completely agree with the part of the reality. We can see that the reality now, there's a certain group of people that definitely have so much privilege that we couldn't, like, even whatever things that we do, no matter how much or how hard we are trying to cancel them, they're still striving, right? So there's a certain group of community, there's a certain group of people that definitely has so much privilege that apparently, they basically kind of rule the world. So we're going to talk about more about that later when we're talking about patriarchy. But I think for me, when we're talking about gender equality and also gender equity, I feel like gender equality itself is the end goal of what we are trying to achieve, which is everyone treated, receive the rights, opportunity, protection, resources equally without gender-based discrimination and or oppression. So I feel like no matter what our gender is, like no matter whether you want to identify yourself as a cis woman or you're a trans woman or you're a cis man, you're a trans man, we're going to receive the rights and also opportunity, protection, resources equal, same like any other. So I think those people who said that like, oh, we can never be equal anyway, we were born different, I think that's just not, that's just not right, because that's not the point. The point is that we have the same opportunity and there is no discriminations based on our, identity, especially with the gender itself. But gender equity, this is also the part where I was kind of disagree with how the character depict what equity looks like, because I feel like gender equity is a forms a way to achieve equality. So we sometimes call it affirmative action, when we are basically trying to prioritize certain group that we feel do not have the same opportunity or chances with the majority of the people who has a lot of privilege. For example, in Indonesia, we have this policy in the House of Representatives, whether like there should be at least 30% of women representatives sitting in DPR or the House of Representatives itself. But I think in reality, we only have 18 or even 20%, but that's called affirmative action. So we are actually trying to do something to be on that part. The main reason why gender equality exists, or the affirmative action itself exists, because we know that basically the system is definitely dominated by a certain group of people, that mostly are men, right? So I felt like within the work of feminism, we know this quote called nothing about us without us, which means that we will never be able to kind of do something in terms of policy activity if the person who do the activity is not part of the group that is basically greatly affected by the policy that we created. So if the whole House of Representative is filled with men who does not know how it feels to be oppressed as a woman, as a trans woman, or as other part of minority group, how can we create a policy that will definitely affect our well-being, that was definitely that's supporting our well-being? So basically that's the idea of gender equity itself. But I think in this current situation, not many affirmative action, especially in Indonesia, I see like many women who are actually part of House Representative, definitely a certain woman who has enough privilege to be able to be there. So somehow, and most of the time, they are not representing the most marginalized group in Indonesia. So I think, just representing women because they are women is not enough for us to achieve gender equality. But I think we need more time to discuss about that. But anyway, what actually caused gender inequality? So we are in a situation when we are not equal, despite that a lot of people say that we can go to school, we can go to, we can find a job. But I think because we have Nemo here who's going to talk about, like a woman refugee situation, I'm sure there is another challenge that faced by women refugee in Indonesia that I like. When we are hearing that, we can definitely say, oh, there's no equality yet in this country or in many other part of the world as well. So I think this is what we are going to talk about. What caused gender equality? As a feminist, and this is something that a lot of people hear when we are talking with feminists, we talk to feminists, is that the cause of gender inequality is definitely patriarchy. I think this is definitely the word that you will hear a lot when you are, talk to me. So I feel like patriarchy, I don't know whether, I think most of us understand what is patriarchy in a sense. It's a social system that put men, especially cis and also heterosexual men, that withhold power. And this, in the patriarchal system, when they withhold power, it's not just in a certain, situation. It's mostly every aspect of the word. When it comes to patriarchal system, it's definitely, there's a certain group, which is men, just heterosexual men, that definitely overpowering, and they are definitely dominating the leadership role in family, politics, moral authority, social privilege, even property ownership. I cannot speak on behalf of the rest of the world, but I can speak on behalf of my experience as Indonesian. Despite that my dad is an ally, like a feminist ally, but I can see, growing up as a Japanese, like Kartini as well, like she grew up in such a not just patriarchal but also feudalism kind of situation during colonialism era. There's definitely a very strong leadership role, not only within the government, not only within the whatever it is, but within the family itself. We can always see that father, in a sense, like a father figure, like a man, is definitely being put as the head of the household or the head of the family. Whether the second class, like at the second tier, definitely the men in the house, whether it's son, uncle, grandfather, anybody who is identify their gender as men. But the last or the bottom, like a group within the family itself that mostly are being told that you just need to follow whatever the men say, like you need to do everything based on their permission, is definitely the woman within the family, whether it is the wife, the mother, daughter, other woman. And I cannot imagine if you are, identifying yourself as a trans within the family. So I think this is definitely create another layer, which we can see that every decision, like the Jakarta feminists, I also do a lot of social work, in a sense that we assist victim and survivors of gender-based violence, mostly sexual violence. There's a lot of rape victims that got pregnant because she got raped, and then when we are trying to do a certain procedure, for example, like a 12 years old, no, 14 years old kids who got pregnant because she was raped, and the doctor itself asking, we need permissions from her husband to do this operation, despite that she is the one who bared the kid, she's the one who victims and stuff like that. But in a patriarchal society, they don't care if it's us who basically endure all the pain and also the shame, the trauma, but we still need permission from men, which this is what happened in a patriarchal society. So, but again, like you can see, like in a political sector, even in a private sector, it is definitely being overpowered or dominated by men. So how did this happen? How patriarchy happened? I think I felt like it's definitely like in a very old times, like in during like the when like very olden times before. I think a lot of it definitely kind of caused by there's a certain reproductive roles that is basically that as a female and also as male that created that kind of dynamics. But throughout times when we have throughout times when we are progressing, I just felt like it does not necessarily how do I say this? Like not necessarily, like a valid anymore, that kind of situation, because we have a different kind of situation itself. Like I think when it comes to patriarchy, there's a lot of gender expectation in it, where gender expectation can change through times, through cultures, through places. And as you can see right now, and this is usually like my other questions when I show this picture, from this three picture, which one is the most patriarchal depiction? And I felt like, and ironically, I felt like the last one, which is this full of white men and leading powerful country, quote unquote, kind of dominating the way that the word revolves. And I felt, especially with the international policy and stuff like that, we can definitely feel that it is definitely overpowered by men, especially white men. And there's this white woman, like I think an Angela Merkel there, which I felt like she's also not very pro to whatever feminist agenda that we have right now. So I think there's a lot of issue when it comes to gender equality and also patriarchy itself. And again, like patriarchy is not only being valued by men, a lot of women itself, like because we grew up in such a patriarchal society, some of them are actually, believe in patriarchal system. So I think that is basically the irony of it all. So what does gender inequality actually looks like? And I think it looks in so many ways, because a lot of people, like I said, the misconception is they think like there's no inequality anymore because we can go to school, but it's not as simple as that. There's women's subordination, which within the patriarchal society, they will always think that women should be at the bottom of quote unquote food chain, or like a pyramid, where like whatever that we do is definitely undervalued. For example, being a housemaker, like as if you're married and then you decided to, I don't want to go to work, I'm sometimes we don't decide, like it's just a society thinks that women should be a wife, should be a stay-at-home wife, should be like a housemaker and all of that, and this is not being valued as work. Despite that, being a housewife, being someone who make the house, they work almost 24/7. As a mother, a lot of people think like, oh, it's so nice that you don't have to go to work, but every day they are working, and most of the times this is subordinating women. It feels that everything that we do is not being valued because you're not producing something, not in terms of like a financially, and it's a very patriarchal and also capitalistic mindset to think that way. And other than that, a lot of us, especially women, have a double burden. I think during COVID-19, we can definitely see for working mothers, when COVID-19 happens, they have to work from home. They also have to do domestic chores. There's so many burden that is being, carried on by women. And a lot of people think that it's okay, that it is something that we need to endure because of that subordinations to begin with. And other than that, we also face gender-based violence or discrimination. A lot of people are being discriminated just because of their gender. For example, gender pay gap, when women are most of the time is being paid less because of the subordination, because they think that women cannot be the head of the household. So their income cannot be a primary income because they have husband, they have father who also provide for them. In reality, there's so many women who are the head of a household, so their income is not just primary, but it's the only income that the household have. But because of that subordination, people think that, oh, we should just pay women less because they're not the head of the household. But that's not the reality. And I think sexual harassment, sexual violence, and all of other forms of gender-based violence is also, product of patriarchy, which is, this is why there is gender inequality. And also social exclusion, where eventually that people exclude women, exclude marginalized group from a certain level of, decision making, like not just in terms of policy, even to, decision making that affecting our life on a daily basis. For example, even going to school, even we're going somewhere, if there is a subordination and we always have to ask permissions to men, there's definitely a social exclusion in that. So that's how gender inequality looks like. And I felt like it's very good if we can definitely take a look at our own surrounding and see how patriarchy kind of, shape our mindset in terms of how we behave, how we treated women within our closest circle itself. Other than that, I think one of the things that I felt like quite progressing in terms of when we're talking about gender equality and feminism is that it's not just about gender, but there are other part of identities that also kind of play a role in how work create or patriarchal society creating inequality. So in a sense that, like a certain identity, marginalized identity, definitely people started with such a mindset of like attitudes, the way that we stereotype certain group of people. For example, in Indonesia, like a Papuan, for example, being stereotyped as they are rude, they are mean, and all of that stuff that definitely create a lot of bias. And I think this is also something that I felt like also happened to like a lot of refugees all around the world. There's definitely certain bias which created, like not just attitudes, but also acts and also discriminations and eventually violence. And also definitely within a certain horrific level, there's a genocide going on. But most of the time, it started with a biased mindset that we are stereotyping people. We are definitely categorizing people in certain way that in a sense that it created hate and eventually it created violence. So what is feminism, which is one of the group that I felt like one of the ideology that constantly talking about gender equality, that this is what we are actually fighting for. Feminism, in a sense, a lot of people think it's in Indonesia, it's the new F word. If we heard the word feminism, a lot of people definitely think, oh, this is social justice warrior. They hate men. They are all lesbians and all of that stuff. But definitely that's another stereotype. But what is actually feminism? A lot of people think that we definitely want it to be above men in a sense, but I think for me, I value feminism, or I define feminism is the way how one of my favorite feminists from the United States, she's a Black woman, Bell Hooks, defined feminism. Feminism is a movement to end sexism, sexist exploitation, and also oppression. So Bell Hooks emphasize not the person who does that, but actually the act of the exploitation and oppression itself. It's the act that we are fighting. It's the systematic patriarchy, the systematic sexism, systematic oppression, exploitation, that's something that we are fighting for. In a sense that we progress so much. I know that the feminism that we have right now, it's probably not the same with feminism that we have many, many years ago. Within feminism itself, we progress from the first wave, where most of the people who are feminists in the first wave, they are fighting for voting rights, like political rights for women, which is, we call it suffragettes movement, which most of them are actually liberal feminists. And which is, this is also sometimes people kind of mock the idea of liberal feminism, despite that they, in a certain level, also contribute to our progress now. But most of the people who were, like in the first wave of feminism, mostly are white people. So in a sense that their movement at that time focusing on the rights of white women, which is kind of leaving out a lot of other groups, women of colors, and also like other marginalized group in that way. But in the 1960s, I think the second wave is starting to come, which is the anti-war movement. Sisterhood is being like there's a sense of sisterhood. The SOGSC, which is the sexual orientations, gender ideology and stuff, is definitely kind of also appearing within the second wave. And this is where radical feminism is kind of also trying to is rising within the second wave. The famous movement is gay liberations, Black power. So there's a certain of acknowledgement of other identities and other groups as well. And within the third wave, I think more people are definitely talking more about sexual reproductive rights, body authority, autonomy, and ecofeminism when we're putting a link between environment and also gender equality into place. It's happening in the third wave, which is, this is where we are starting to acknowledge there is a diverse identities between each individual, between women, which we come now into intersectional feminism. And I felt like this is going to be the perfect way for us to bridge to Nivo, because I felt like with the intersectional feminism, which is our value within Jakarta Feminist, we believe that every person has their own identity that create privilege and also create oppression, like not creating, like, like definitely affecting the way, in a sense, in their social hierarchy. So for example, like me, I am a Javanese woman, grew up in a Muslim family, living in Indonesia, living in Java Island. All of those are privilege. I was privileged enough to be born in a privileged community. So if I am going to take a look only on my oppression, I might say that we already achieved equality, because my only, minority or marginalized identity is just me being born as a woman. In a sense that my struggle probably limited to sexism. But then this is something that we're going to talk about with Nemo as well. When you are a woman, a refugee, the oppressions that you feel is definitely different with the way I feel oppression. But it doesn't mean just because I don't feel your oppression, it doesn't mean that your oppression doesn't exist. But a lot of people are so blinded because they think like, oh, it didn't happen to me, so it's fine. So it's not my issue. But with intersectional feminism, which is Audre Lorde, one of my favorite feminists as well, said before that I'm not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own. In a sense that, like I'm not going to stop fighting just because my problem is done. Like I don't have problems anymore, because I know there's still so many women out there. There's so many other marginalized groups out there that are still not be able to receive their right. They're still unable to exercise their freedom. In a sense, that's why intersectional feminism is there, because we are fighting for a common goal, a common greater good, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. And I think that's the end of my presentation. So thank you so much. I'm just going to give it back to Nashat.
Wow, such a sufficient presentation, Phoebe. Thank you so much for this huge information. I'm really surprised with this kind of information. It's too much, and all of it's useful, I am sure, especially for the refugees. You have shared enough information regarding the feminists, and yeah, I have noted some points also from your presentation, which is quite useful. As again, I'm saying this. I agree about the equality that you have agreed among the equality and reality also. Equality is quite important, and no discrimination as well. Also, um, yeah, the point that you shared, which is really attract me, which is patriarchy and the equality. That was, an amazing. Yeah, thank you so much again. And also the feminist, I think we all, the men, have to agree regarding the feminist definition. If it goes according to the bell hooks, that's a great definition, and we all have to agree about this. Thank you again, Vivi, for the presentation. I would like to go ahead with our second speaker, Nemo Adam. Nemo Adam, she is co-founder and head of program Sisterhood Community Center. You are most welcome, Nemo. Nemo, she is my friend also, and I'm so glad to have you as a speaker here in this serious webinar. Please go ahead, Nemo.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you very much, all of you guys. I think it is a small world. Also, I have to say good chance to see again Sister Fifi, Jakarta Feministi. And absolutely, Fifi, you are not free because I'm not free now. I'm a refugee woman. That's joking. I would like to start my speech, and it's great honor for me to celebrate Kartini Day while I don't know her. But to be honest, I discovered this amazing lady last year. I read her background and her history from here. And about the refugee, I think what's called feminism, equality, justice, Fifi explaining very well and clear. But my main point I want to discover, it is where are the refugee women located this issue of feminism. What is, to be honest, as a Nemo, if I introduce to people before, I'm a Nemo. Originally, I'm from Somalia. I live in Indonesia last 6 years, my own way. And I'm a founder and current director, Sisterhood Community Center. So Sisterhood is only women's project existing in Indonesia. So just we are a refugee women support the other refugee women. Talking about the gender inequality, one brother sent me this address, many things come to my mind. So the gender and equality, where am I? I feel like I'm called thankless human, forget human, like when it's become a refugee woman. Before talking about equality, we have to ask if the refugee women, did they have a basic human rights? That question I think is totally no. And the second question is like, is it possible the refugee women are dreaming now? They can get what's called gender equality. Is they have a system or a policy or a space they can find what's called gender equality in the middle of this country? So on behalf of our audience, I would like to express my words to explain generally the situation of refugee women, and then I will come up to our as a sisterhood community where we are going to this topic. So as we are aware of, the government of Indonesia has not signed it in 1951 convention relating from refugee, which means it is no obligation to provide access to services of refugee. So refugee generally, men and women, have no rights to settle permanently in Indonesia. They cannot legally work, marry, or drive, or attend university, or even register their children. Furthermore, the global refugee crisis is increasing since 2014. The Australian government changing the policy has to let more people living in a limbo more than 10 years. So there are approximately, it's called 4,000 women and 3,700 children living in Indonesia in this time. So just like country, Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, Iran, Eritrea, and so on. That is the general. So there is no obligation. There is no right that we can access what's called women rights or equality of gender. When I come to about sisterhood, we say like sisterhood we calling is the first thing, it's the first place in Jakarta. It's run by refugee women. So our vision it was working of well-being refugee to benefit the strength of sisterhood. as one of the global feminist articles is to be building sisterhood. So our mission is a unite for all background faces in a safe place to promote their rights and well-being for refugee women in Jakarta. So to do this job, as a Sisterhood Community Center, we do two essential things. Livelihood, essential is like classes and skill building trainings for refugee women to become self-sufficient. Another area that we also make focus are focusing on legal empowerment. Especially last 18 months, we have beginning legal awareness and advocate activism for refugee women to understand to claim their rights. As we are aware of, many countries, they are from this refugee. They don't have any rights to access education, to speak out their rights. And that's why we need now the women and girls is still facing the barrier that prevent them to achieve their full potential. Even if there's a zero number or as 1% availability that the refugee women can access rights or equality or gender issue, this is not something they learned from home country. So we need to be ensured the equal choices and opportunity for them. And we see many organizations trying to involve the refugee women to give same opportunity for a man. Unfortunately, that's not the way they can bring up here, because these women needs more than that, needs a safe space, listening and understanding, and to get where she is. As last 18 months as a refugee community center in women, we are listening more than 200 refugee women. We are asking, did you know you have a right? Most of them, they are give up to say it. And I always remember one of women, she said, women survive by being just silent about their situation. They just suffer. But as a Sisterhood, we say now it's not the time to give up. So this is shows you how the refugee women, even they normalize it. This is the abuses, victims, whatever happened to their lives. And the main area or the main challenge is two things. Sexual gender-based violence, the refugee women face it every single day, from husbands, family members, nannies, community. They have a little freedom to leave their houses. However, refugee women have no knowledge, when we say it become of the knowledge, of Indonesian law, what the Indonesian law do in SGPV or pathways of justice. The most vulnerable group include the young women who have to come in Indonesia and combine it. Like in 2019, I checked the UNHCR data, recorded cases about SGPV or women's violence. It's 37 women. But as a sisterhood, we know there is a real number of cases is significantly higher than that. But the women choose to be silent. The other thing that the refugee women cannot access to be finding the gender equality or a justice currently, it is what's called the weak institutions. When I'm saying the weak institutions, it's like in Indonesia, only one NGO is, I think it's work already today here, have a work and network of pro bono lawyers to support the refugee. But even Swaki, they don't have extremely stretched, they have a lack of experts for women rights or SGPV. They cannot complete that cases, many barriers. So refugee women have a little trust also in a UNHCR staff about the translators because based on culture. So this is the result of the refugee women don't need to seek the legal support at all. So we don't know the interpreters or a paralegal or this confidentiality. The women are explaining, no, this is normal. I have to be silent. And as a Sisterhood Community Center, what we are looking for in Indonesia, if government or any NGO, is called equity. And I think Fifi explained very well the difference between equality and equity. Why we are charm up the equity, it is needed. The refugee women, they are not want to be competition for a male or a culture or what is make them barrier, but we are ready to get what we need in a life. Like SHR for refugee women is united. there's not the list of emergency any organization work for refugee women. So that means the refugee women, they don't have a rights of health, especially when it's become their reproductive system. They don't have a right to involve with what they want to this country. So in all, I can say as a Sisterhood Community Center, when we are saying, we talk about the gender equality, there's no way, or I don't have to see anything that can lead us. Being a partner of Jakarta Feministi or a Women's Fund Asia, we're trying to have a conversation from refugee women. 74% refugee women told us they don't have a knowledge what's called women's rights. So this is why we are focusing as a sisterhood community to teach them, to give them a space and a time they understand who they are, what their rights is they are denied since they was born, why they understand being a mom doesn't mean that you are against being another thing. If this is your property, it means that you are destroying your husband. 79% the women that we met in our last 18 months is this program. They told us they don't have any information or knowledge about how they are reporting. If they get a violence, they don't know how to report if they have become a victim for someone, even if they are under protection in Indonesian law. So that's why we are trying by supporting Suwaka and LBH Apik Jakarta to train the refugee women to understand what the rights give them. But still the justice is absent. So as a sisterhood community, we are only one organization. Maybe there's a many refugee-led organization busy something else like education and still, but what is become as a sisterhood community center, more than 500 women flowers, they are seeking for justice. They are seeking for to meet their needs. So the need is that they need is first to understand where they are located in this country. I know the Indonesian law, I'm not a lawyer, but my knowledge that I investigate, they are really respect the child and woman in a high position. But unfortunately, that legal not practices the refugee women and child needed in health because many barriers, lawyers, language, communications, or many things. So when we become a gender equality, I believe it is something that every woman needs to meet, or every human. I cannot say only those who need the equality, it's a woman. There's also a man needed it, like LGBT people, I think they also needed it. But the most important thing that I would like to remark today is three things. There is a possibility that the government of Indonesia or institutions like Jakarta Feministi or Communist Perempuan Nasional give a space that the refugee women can practice their rights and to find the equality. The second question is the refugee communities can be allowed the women get a freedom. So one of our programs at Sisterhood, we back to the men, refugee men, to explain this is the rights of refugee women. It isn't something that destroys him. Because as we said, supersticity of culture, where we are from, it's giving the man, he hold all the shares of life. And that the many refugee women still remain silent and they don't want to talk after the man. But when we are training them like support and giving information for a man, telling them this is your time to join us. Support your wife, support your daughter, support your sister to come out and to learn something. So public speaking or speaking up the rights, finding opportunities, earning money, become someone, the woman that you want. It is needed like community cooperation. So when it's become this issue, that's our call. We are trying to advocate and make more awareness instead of changing a policy or reaching the government or these things. And this is what Sisterhood are trying to do this year. It is like trying the refugee women are ready to speak up. So we're training 7 refugee women, like advocacy team for all different backgrounds. As you are aware of Sisterhood, we are involved with more than 12 countries. background for refugee women. So every country have their culture, and everyone have these things. So I don't want to take a long time. I'll give back to Nashat, but I would like to conclude these summary changes. First, the refugee women, I call it thankless women because nobody knows them. We need to get someone take out our voice as a feminist or as a sister or as a man, whatever you are. But we need someone teach these hopeless young girls living in this country to understand their rights. It is very beginning of life, because when Fifi talk about to fight to change the policy, I'm a fight to understand myself. So it's totally big gap. So I think it's the work for every woman around the world, wherever they are listening to me today or reach my message. And this is something that we need to save this community. When I say if you save a mom, you save a family. So if you save a family, that you are safe. So educated a woman or giving the rights and understanding and space that the refugee women need is feel safe. The refugee women, I believe they are survivors right now, but still they are victims inside. They are broken. They believe they don't have these rights. Only privileged women have a mom and father under a good country have it. But we are trying, me and my team, it is to give her like, this is your time, don't give up yet. And I agree with Fifi, no one woman is free until others not. So even if I understand my rights as Nemo, I'm ready to stand the other refugee women flowers for me to understand their rights. And one day they will speak like me in here. So thank you very much. And it's great honor for me. And I would like to say all Indonesian happy Kartini Day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nemo. Happy Karantini Day again to everyone. Thank you again, Nemo, for the great explanation and presentation regarding your activities. However, I know very well, as a refugee, I know very well what such a kind and such a great activities that you are doing with the refugees women. And I do agree with all the points that have been shared by Nemo. Because I'm also a refugee representative, and she's also have been a refugee representative as well. Yeah, and we are holding different kind of activities among the refugees, and this is one of the most effective activities that run by Nemo and her team. However, I would like to emphasize on the point that those kind of activities that been established and initiated by the refugees to the refugees, it should be supported directly and immediately by the organizations whom it may concerns, as Nemo have mentioned actually. Yeah, again, Nemo, I do agree with the 2 points that shared by you. Most of the refugees women are suffering from, which is sexual gender-based violence and the harassment and the abuse that happening among the refugees women, because I'm one of the witnesses of those cases, according to my activity also as a refugee representative. Um, yeah, until right now, there is no clear access for those refugees women to reach for help or to seek help and support from those refugees organizations. That's why all the potentials are created and initiated between the refugees themselves and the women themselves. Thank you again, Nimu, for the great presentation. It's highly appreciated. I would like to go ahead with the talk show, if you are guys okay. Yeah. Okay. For the first speaker, Vivi, we are coming back to you actually for the questions. I would like to ask you a question that I think it's addressed by most of the community, refugees community, and yeah, like they are staying here in Indonesia, and you have mentioned about discrimination. We are all agree, and you especially as a feminist are against this discrimination. In your perspective, what is the root cause of gender discrimination in Indonesia and in this world?
Okay, so I think the root cause is definitely expectation I think a lot of people cannot differentiate what are actually sex and also gender. This is like with Jakarta Feminists, we do the Feminism 101 training, which is basically, it's a training that can be accessed by a lot of like public, but mostly it's in Bahasa Indonesia. Basically, we also, I think when we're talking about gender equality, the first thing that we need to understand is what is actually gender. A lot of people think that gender is sex, which I think in Indonesia itself, a lot of people will definitely assume if you have penis, then you must be a man. If you have a vagina, then you must be a woman. But I felt like if you have penis, you're a male. If you have vagina, if you have uterus, you're a female. But being a man, being a woman, for me, it's a role that being expected by society. If you have a certain body autonomy, like an autonomical way, like a biological way, then society suddenly just kind of put you in a certain box, which is, for example, me. When I was born, I have a when I was still in my mom's belly, and then they do the ultrasound, and they see like, oh, she has a vagina or she doesn't have penis. It means that she is a woman. Well, I'm a female, but I'm fortunately, in a sense, because I have a lot of privilege being a cis and also has heterosexual woman. I happen to be, I identify myself as a woman. But despite of that, not just society put me in a box as a woman, but this box has a certain, some kind of like a limitation. That's why it's called a box. Which consists of gender norms, gender expectations, gender stereotype. As a woman, you have to look certain way. As a woman, you have to behave certain way. As a man, you have to behave certain way. This is your characteristics. So when a certain individual being put in a box, and then suddenly they don't like the border that they have, or like individually, they feel like I identify myself as a woman, but I don't want to have a long hair. This is a big issue when I was growing up. My mom always told me that like, as a woman, you have to have long hair. My dad passed away when I was very young. And then she always bring up, like your dad would be so sad if you cut your hair, if you color your hair, that kind of thing. It seems like very petty in a sense to think about it, but I just felt like that's how society trying to control my body, my hair, because I'm a woman. But it translates in so many different ways. There are so many women who feel like, I don't think I want to be a stay-at-home mom. I still want to work when I got married. But people will definitely put them in a box saying that you're not completely a woman if you're not having this role. And this is actually also goes with men, right? I think with men itself, those who identify as men, the pettiest would be men cannot wear pink. I don't know why they also like put colors into gender. Like, I don't care. If you want to wear pink, just wear pink, but like a lot of people mock them. And especially men who has like a certain like, like gender expression, like they probably can be more feminine in a sense, or they don't like violence. And a lot of people was just like, you're not men enough if you're not doing this. You're not men enough if you cry. And this is also create a lot of problem with men. A lot of them holding a lot of emotion. And I think UNICEF has like this data that the suicide rate in men is so high because they face a lot of mental health issue because they cannot express their emotion. Most of the emotion that they are allowed is definitely, like being angry, being, tough and like stuff like that. When you show this emotion that categorized as a feminine emotion, which is I also don't understand why people think crying is just for women. Like everybody can cry, everybody can feel sad, everybody can went through a heartbreak and all of that stuff. But like with that kind of expectation that create a certain discrimination when people do something that is not according to society expectation. That's why like when we're talking about gender-based discrimination or gender-based violence, this mostly happen to this gender role that is commonly seen as like has more boundaries in a sense, like women who who decided to wear something that is not covering their body, for example, and people think it's a justification for people to do certain way. And I think this is also goes beyond. I think a lot of women who are like who's in a very covered clothing, they still, receive sexual violence. Even within the family, women are still, like, I think Komnas Perempuan, the National Commissions of Violence Against Women, their data show 80% of the cases that is being reported in Indonesia actually happen within the family. So this is also one of the things that we can see, that there is a certain expectation that women should just say yes to anything, that they just have to endure. And also this is also goes with men, that you have to do like a, have to express a certain way. A lot of my male friends that I ask, okay, have you ever, being a unconsciously being a perpetrator of not sexual violence, for example, like a minor sexual harassment, catcalling, sexist comment and stuff like that. And they definitely say like, oh yes, I am guilty of that. I'm not, immune to that kind of behavior, because there is a certain peer pressure. Like if you don't do certain violence, then you're not men enough. And like that kind of situation, I just felt like it's also very problematic. And I think women are also being conditioned that they think it's like it's a men thing, like they kind of normalize that kind of situation that created this very long ongoing problem. But I felt like the main issue, I know it becomes so long, my answer, but the main issue is because definitely there's like a certain expectation from society how female and male should identify, should do, should behave, and and all of that. So yeah.
Thank you, Vivi. Yes, it's a very sufficient answer regarding the question. I really satisfied with the answer actually, and I do agree with you. Like the expectation from the community, it's the one that are going to judge and discriminate other peoples, and also breaking the community boundaries, and the basics that they put from tradition, let's say from other issues. It's quite hard, especially nowadays, because we can see those kind of points that they have been established in ancient life. It's quite hard to change it actually. Thank you again for the answer, Vivi. So as we got one question answer from Vivi, I would like to go ahead to Nemo to ask her a question. Nemo, what is your plans of advocacy regarding equal rights and refugees? As we heard from you right now, you are running the Sisterhood community, and it's running very well. And what is your goal? What's your plans advocacy regarding the equal rights in the future?
Thank you very much for asking me this. I have a once become a plan or telling what you would like to do in the future. It will be like many things, because I have a lot of idea that I would like to express and to surface the refugee women. Unfortunately, we have a many barriers. The first thing, we are a refugee, not allowed to have a registration, like a legal document. So we cannot press a campaigns that we can advocate the refugee women rights. But Sisterhood, it is like we have a plan, and it's to train the refugee women, their rights, and finding a connection, like making and reaching friends like Bifi or other women NGOs in Indonesia to express who we are. We wanted to express like Jakarta Feminist, I'm a part of you. Don't touch with me, where am I or what's my status is in. So as this year, 2022, we tried to apply a same grant to just work and focus on gender equality, and especially advocate the refugee women rights, and especially child protection. But this is needed to have a fund. Like last 18 months, our fund is come from Women's Fund Asia. So this support us a lot to discover all these things. It's coming only the last 18 months we have this fund. But our Butasham, I can say loudly, we have a two focus: to train the women, understand what the right is, and to encourage the community. I don't talk about Indonesian community, I talk about refugee community, father and mother, brother, to stand up their sister and their part of their body. So this is what we will try to do if the plans allow us. So always, as you are aware of, as a refugee program is uncertainty. we don't know we survive next year or not, but this is one of my hope. And that's why always I call others for help, because to call others for help is not something shame, but I think it's something like we can survive. So this is, I think I can answer your question. I'm ready to fight the rest of my life, finding the refugee women's rights with my team. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nemo. Thank you for the answer. I really appreciate it, and I wish and praying for you to reach your goals and plans in the future for the refugees women. Again, you are doing a great job in the community, and it's highly appreciated again. Coming back to you, Fifi, we are really willing to hear from you more information regarding feminists and for women. Vivi, what do you think? What is and how possible to collaborate with those refugees women in the future? As you heard from Nemo just right now in the presentation for the suffering and the concerns of the refugees women here in Indonesia. So, what is let's call it also a plan? What is your plan in the future with the refugees women?
I think maybe I just wanted to acknowledge one of the things that I feel that we are lacking in general in terms of not just like a feminist movement, but I think in general like the whole world, especially in Indonesia. It's sad to actually acknowledge that refugee issue is not like a popular issue in Indonesia. And I think this is something that we are definitely struggling when we're talking about feminist issue. I also happen to work for another regional, no, not regional, actually global organizations that working on like a feminist advocacy, but in a global level. And one of the programs that we do is that we have this certain program that we call interrogating borders, which means that we trying to tackle, because like a lot of people don't see that borders or refugee or anything that related to border in general, it's actually also a feminist issue. And I think we're not only talking about refugee, we're talking about domestic migrant workers and many other like issues that come within the borders itself, right? So I think with Jakarta Feminist itself, we tried as best as we can supporting like a woman refugee within our response, like COVID-19 response. We also put one of our priority at that time is woman refugee. We did like a certain like a fundraising kind of situation for women, and also woman vulnerable women's group, which I feel like a lot of other organization definitely did not see woman refugee as one of the woman vulnerable groups, because like I said, unfortunately it's not something that is quite popular, which is sad. A lot of feminists in Indonesia do not see this as a correlation between feminism and also refugee. But as we are, because we believe in intersectional feminism, this is what we are trying to kind of like to always bring the perspective that there are other marginalized groups that most of Indonesian feminist activists does not talk about, which is the woman refugee. And I think this is also something that we would like to offer to Sisterhood as well. And other than like, because I know that we need a more sustainable support in terms of supporting women refugee. We could not just have a donation and then send it to them all the time. And I felt like we need to have like a more sustainable activity. And I think Mimo mentions about the gender-based violence and stuff that is basically going on within the woman refugee. And this is actually what we are kind of like expertise on. So in a sense, if there's in a future that Sisterhood or any other woman refugee needs support from us, do let us know. And like, this is something that we can definitely provide as well. If you want to have like some kind of training in terms of gender-based violence, basically letting, like refugee knows that you have rights. And especially now we just passed the UU TPKS, the anti-sexual violence law, and this is something that we can use as a base of like a protecting women or victim survivors of gender-based violence in Indonesia in general. Definitely this is not ideally this is not going to just apply or imply like Indonesian, but I think everyone was being like experiencing gender-based violence in Indonesia, this is something that they can also receive protection from. So to let me know if there's something that we can collaborate, we will be more than happy to support.
Thank you, Vivi. Thank you for the answering. Actually, yes, We need to try our best, Nemo, actually, from the answer. So maybe we need to try our best to share more about refugees women here in Indonesia and how they are concerning, actually, so to get the attract from the other feminists, let's say, such as VV and others also. And thanks again to Suwaka to create this kind of collaboration and between sisterhood. And right now we can see there will be hopefully there will be some kind of initiating between Jakarta feminists and sisterhood in the future. Also, you mentioned a very good point, which is training. According to me, as a refugee representative, I have been seeing that many women have to get some information about feminists, about the at least the presentation that you have shared just right now, Vivi. It is very useful for them. So those kind of trainings that you mentioned, probably in a communication with the sisterhood, it will be great and it will be amazing. Thanks again, Vivi. Coming to you again, Nemo. Can you please elaborate more on how hard for the woman to be a refugee or asylum seeker? Because you are a woman and you have been all this time, an asylum seeker and refugee. So please describe us this kind of situation.
Thank you very much. I really want to say something before answer your question. I think Jakarta Feminist and Sisterhood already we have a connection. Like very much well communication, and this year they are one of our reference because since we don't have a grant registration, Fifi was allowed us like to use Jakarta Feminist as a reference. Like we are in Indonesia and stay like we can offer this program. So I want to say here in public, thank you, and really you are a role model from the rest women NGOs if they want to reach their sisters have a legal life in their country. So this is one of when people asking me how it look like the life being a refugee woman in Indonesia. I think it's totally hard. It's hard to survive. The country that don't know, like we are unknown when we are middle of in Indonesia. We are not the table of discussion. We are not the table of life. We are not the table of planning in the future. So whenever asking me like, oh, Nimo, you are doing all these things by your own, it's just I'm trying to fill up a gap that there's no anyone else who want to fill it. But as a refugee woman, we have a double trouble. I think if a man have one trouble, like lack of rights, we have as a refugee woman double. The responsibility of family, and as you are aware of being a woman, money culture, there is no need to be only wife. If you are a sister, if you are a girl, anyone, you have a daughter, you have responsibility to do. So that is make the refugee women suffering a lot. Maybe when we was in our home country, we are just suffering physically because someone attack us or do something. But in Indonesia, it's double, mentally suffering, financially suffering, future suffering, and everything is like kind of nowhere as a refugee woman. So whenever, like I'm 4 years and half, middle of 500 refugee women. So sometimes I call myself grandmother because I listen all these different stories that they sharing to me. Really, I felt like these women, they really need emergency help, mentally, physically, financially. And then they said, oh, Sisterhood is a safe space. Just we give them a time to share out. The time they feel they are human to say, to discuss something. And to be honest, as community leader, Nashad, we want to RR, like refugee represents for a long time, all the UNHCR programs or partners, it is not ready to give a safe space for refugee women. Like you can see STPP case, a man interprets. How mentally the woman ready to be tell what happened because a male is interpreting her. And then when you ask it why, this is the circumstance. They said the refugee woman can be participate being a refugee representative as same number like a man, but they need more than that. They have own space, own officer, an own area to express their feeling and to share with it. Because the culture told me, don't cry in front of men. The culture told me, don't see my body or my place is hurting me while you are seeing a man. So how the young girl is going to say that? Maybe after I come in Indonesia, I say it. But before I can't. So many young girls now, they are the same situation what I felt. So I see many nice words are written in a papers when it's become refugee human rights or in document or in calling the posts that they put it. But technically it's not safe. So the refugee women, what we are like saying, only the way we can survive to get provided as a safe protection with understanding. So to your answer, this challenge only will be if we get the help. So this country like if the refugee women get someone supported or make sustainable project like Sisterhood Community Center, they will create them themselves. Because Sisterhood now we create the leaders. We give them a position as managers to duplicate by themselves. We give her the empower. I said, okay, I will step back this year being a manager. I will stay advisor. Maybe you become a manager. Then I watch that young lady in the next 2 years how she can work. Maybe then she will run her own idea to stand the other refugee women. So this is really, Nashad, is very hard question. This is not our choice to become a refugee woman. And then again, it's not our choice to be suffering. There's no law and there's no system or there's no justice. So I think this is why we are here today to tell the rest of the world, the refugee women, they need a help or they need someone understand them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nemo. And sorry again if this kind of question is a bit sensitive for you, but I just wanted to hear more from you as a refugee woman, how you have been oppressed and how your journey have been quite difficult and tough. Yeah, again, we coming back to Vivi. She was mentioning that women, refugees, women are not quite, on a direct subject among the media. Let's say that's cannot reach for those kind of organizations to get support. So through you, Nimu, and we are so proud of you as a refugee woman to share about those kind of concerns, and hopefully this kind of concerns going to deliver to whom it may concern, hoping that one day there will be a solution for the refugees women. And again, you are just saying that we are here to tell the rest of the world about what's the refugee women, not only in Indonesia but in different countries as well. So yeah, proud of you, Nemo. Coming back to you, Vivi. Actually, again, willing to hear from you more. However, some of the questions are a bit difficult. I can feel that, but just please feel free. Um, I just would like to now from you, VP, what are the greatest way to increase the equal rights between men and women? Um, yeah, this is the question.
Okay, that is a hard question. I think this is
That's
like,
right.
yeah, I mean, like it's not. I mean, I cannot answer that in like as one answer. It's definitely we need a lot of approaches, but I felt like to begin with, it's just changing some people mindset in a way that how they treating women. And I just happened last night, I was being invited to moderate this inclusive like I don't know, Salat Tarawih, like, and then they have the lecture and stuff like that. And one of the things that people like the topic of that lecture at that time was how we can during Ramadan, we should reflect on how Islam is, like we definitely Islam, like those believe in Islam, has like a certain like, how do I say, like guarantee to protect everyone, like no matter man or woman. And I felt like all religion like definitely believe in that sense as well. And I felt like during Ramadan, it's the perfect way for us to kind of reflect what are the humanity aspects that we have, including the way that we perceive, how we respond, how we perceive, how we respond, and how we would like to engage if we see sexual harassment happening, surrounding us. And I felt like that's definitely translated a lot when we're talking about gender equality. But I felt like that reflecting to begin with is to reflect how we are actually perceiving women or other marginalized group, because like I mentioned in my presentation, the main issue is definitely a mindset. There is like a bias within our mindset because of there is a lot of stereotypes or assumptions that we put towards certain groups, certain identity, people who identify themselves in a certain group. I believe that people has a stereotype against women, against woman refugee, men refugee, like many other identity as well. And I think we need to get rid of that mindset to begin with. And I think the best way to do that is definitely throughout education, right? But I felt like this is also something that people always see education as in like a formal education, but I felt more on how we are always educating not just our younger generation, but also ourselves. And I think we always forgot that part when we always need to educate ourselves as well. And I think that's definitely in a way we can move on from what we have right now in terms of believing patriarchal mindset and all of that stuff. But I believe that this is not just like 1 day, 2 days, or even a week of struggle. This is like, because when we're talking about gender equality, it means that we are shifting a lot of paradigm, we're just shifting a lot of mindset that has been going on for hundreds of years. So it's not going to be as simple as that. It definitely need time for us to be able to progress. And I know that a lot of us are tired, especially like those who are within the marginalized, in the marginalized community. We are tired of being oppressed all the time. You're tired of fighting. But I think the only way for us to be able to achieve what we want is to definitely continue to fight. So, yeah.
Thank you, Vivi. It's quite sufficient actually regarding this question. So I think it's not hard the question for you. Thank you again. All right. Coming back to you, Nemo. Probably this is going to be a last question for you, so no worries. I just would like to know more, Nemo, about the sisterhood. Not only me and the audience as well. Is Sisterhood are holding some kind of training for the refugees women? And what is the main services of Sisterhood for the refugees women in Indonesia?
Thank you very much for asking me this. Yeah, absolutely. Sisterhood is the first and only safe space in Jakarta, run for refugee women. And as a sisterhood, we founded in 2018, 8th marriage. And our vision in Indonesia, where the well-being of all refugee women benefited the strength of sisterhood. And our mission of this is like to unite women for all the faiths and background in a safe, welcoming space to promote the rights and well-being being a refugee. So in our value as a sisterhood community center, it's a dignity, equality, resilient, purpose, and hope, and are modeling by our management team. And we practice daily in our work to do these things. And the main area that we are giving them, the refugee women, is livelihood essential. When we say livelihood, it makes like 3 main parts. The classes essential skills like English literacy, computer, and skill building training like tailoring, hairdressing, makeup, crocheting, jewelry stuff, and physical well-being like yoga, reproductive health, dental cleaning, book club, and sharing experience. That is what we are giving the refugee women opportunity to rebuild their life, what they lost when they were in their country. The advocacy and legal empowerment. It is our new program since last 18 months that we provided them. So when we say like as a center, it's only for refugee women. It's only for women. It's not allowed the men enter, or it's not allowed a man to become part of this program. So that's why we have a friends and volunteers, almost 30 Indonesian women, like English department, teach the refugee women. When we say like we providing our women to be planning and decision making, the structure assisted group, we working on it. Everyone is a member. We don't use the word of a student or a person, but we use you are a member. So sisterhood like a home. So there are 70%, we make a surface and assessment that would the refugee women have potassium to learn. For example, if they want to learn jewelry class, we have to find the budget. Then as a sisterhood community, we provided the material, we provide transportation. Since last 2 years, our classes is online, we provided internet package that make the mother easy to come because there's no special financial that the mother receive to take care of herself. So as a sisterhood community, we make it easy to get safe space. It means getting equipment, get the material, get the glass, get the what you want to learn. Not we decided it. The second thing is like listening. So our main area that we focusing the refugee women are listening during the classes. So they have to be communicate each other. Even if they are a different country, we're building them their relationship. So the girl live in Makassar, she have a friend in Jakarta because we bring them a same WhatsApp group and then they're building the harmony as a sisters. Especially they have a main topic to talk about. Oh, like I understand more about Afghanistan story, or maybe my friends in Afghanistan, they understand more about the Somali story. Another thing, learning and language diversity, flexibility. When we say the flexibility, we know the refugee women, they have a little freedom to come at houses. So we make a more flexibility according to the time. So sometimes it's happening to me, her husband calling me, said, what are you teaching my wife? And he said, I teach your wife to become the best woman in the world and support you like a man. I not teach her to kill you. So it's like giving us sometimes flexibility, like we want to make it clear all the thinkings and accountability. Like always, we make a monitoring and evaluation, pre and post assessment. What's the value of this activity for refugee women? So Sisterhood is more than learning center, is a more than, we call like a legal farm or a space that the home of refugee women they have. And now our followers is almost 500 refugee women across Indonesia. They have a different island and we have a 30 Indonesian volunteers that we are so lucky. And also the current management team in 2022, they are members we registered in 2019. So also we encourage the leadership empowerment. The women can be take a role as a sisterhood. It's for their property, not Nemo and team property. So as a co-founders, we staying directing and advising and training the others. I think that's enough. And Sisterhood is located Jakarta for a free rent home. Our generous sister Indonesia give us 3 years free rent. And it is 8 rooms and big garden and workshop room. And it's a well equipped. And also we have a very big, beautiful kitchen that the women practice local Indonesian cooking and something like that. And Sisterhood, we have a personal donation. We don't have a sustainable partnership, make our project. So that's why we create like a link a kita bisa. If one can donate the Sisterhood, they donate the refugee women directly. And the difference between classes and this, because we provide all the material and equipment for the women, it is a highly expensive budget for us. So that's why we scope always 200 women to benefit per year as a skills. But in general program, all of them, they can involve it. So thank you for answering that. And I am happy to share all social media accounts if anyone like to reach Sisterhood and know more.
Thank you so much, Nemo. Highly appreciated. And again, we are, as refugees, we are proud of you, of what are you doing here among the refugees. And I'm sure most of the refugees women are in need of this kind of activities. So well done. It's an amazing. Vivi, are you sure that you want to answer one more question? Is that okay
Sure,
with
why
you?
not?
Perfect. That's perfect. You have an amazing smile, by the way.
Thank you.
You are most welcome. Just would like to know, in your activity as a feminist, and you are motivating and advising the women on how they can react in some situations, and you are teaching them. I can say that. Have you faced any kind of situations from the let's say the husband, that probably they are reacting that you are taking their wives to the wrong way according to their perspectives. So I think you got me.
Yeah.
You got my question, right?
Yeah, I understand your question. And I think
Yes,
it's definitely not just their husband, even sometimes the whole family thinks that, like especially
exactly.
when, this is like a very sad reality when we're talking about, women, or not just women, like everyone who are victims and survivors of gender-based violence. One among many other reasons why they are not reporting their, harassment experience is because their family said that it's, like basically putting bad names to the family. Like they're just like in Indonesia, we call it aib, which is like, I don't know, like it seems like we're the one who kind of, putting bad names within the family because we experience gender-based violence or harassment. Either it is in the family or the perpetrators is actually someone that is not your family. It's basically like kind of like shaming them, saying that like, oh, it's because of your fault. It's like, like, oh, it's because like she behaves a certain way and that kind of stuff, despite that that's not the problem is definitely the perpetrators. And I think like a lot of issue, and that we had like this situation, it's not us who experienced this, but one of the legal aid who is focusing on, like their work is primarily on gender-based violence that experienced by women and also children. They have like this certain so there's like a teenager that are being asked by their family to get married, like before they finish their, I think, high school. And like she ran away and like run to this legal aid and basically asking for a safe place for her to stay because she doesn't want to get married. She still want to finish the school and her school, and like she's 16. Like there's like, and it's also right now it's illegal, I think, like with the new law, like you're not like, I think the minimum age is now 19. But like in a sense, like it was like a horrible situation. The whole family came to the office trying to basically kind of threatening them and all of that stuff. So there is definitely this kind of challenges, especially when the family itself are the perpetrators. There are so many cases as well, like I mentioned, like when the family said that like, oh, let's just settle this in a family way, which is asking them to get married. Like, can you imagine, like you were raped by someone and they ask your rapist to marry you? It means that you're going to be raped for the rest of your life, right? So, but this is the reality that we are facing right now. A lot of people does not want to, being publicly known as a victim of, I think not them, I think mostly the family itself that does not want to be, like seeing, like a member of your family being a victim. It means that they're the one who's putting a bad name. It's not like it. I don't think they are putting bad names. If there is a bad names, the bad name is definitely being lied on to the perpetrators, not the victims itself. And I think this is also one of the things that we need to shift, the way that we only value women if they are quote unquote pure and all of that stuff. If they are quote unquote tainted, it means that they are not valuable anymore. So this is also something that we need to shift. Our mindset also needs to shift, that no matter who we are, whether we are being harassed or not, or like we are still valuable. Like our value is not being defined by that kind of incident that make you traumatized your whole life. We have a more, like we have a lot that we can offer beside, beside that incident that happened to us. But yeah, it's definitely an issue here.
Correct, Vivi. Thank you so much again for the answering the question. I think I have go ahead with the questions because I was, really interested to know more, and I can see that we have reached to the end of the session. Today it's an amazing day for me, and I'm sure for the audience as well to have Vivi and Nemo from Sisterhood, Vivi from Jakarta Feminist, in a subject of gender equality and women rights. Thank you so much, guys, for the speaker. And I would like to thank Suwaka for creating this kind of opportunity for refugees to know more about the gender equality and women rights in Indonesia. Again, thanks to you all, and hope to see you again in a good health. All right, this is Nashad Jihad, a refugee from Indonesia.